So next I would like to introduce Dr. Seongah Im, who is a professor in the Educational Psychology Department at the University of Hawaii at Manoa. Her research focuses on theories and applications of measurement, psychometrics, and statistical methods applied in education, psychology, and social science. Dr. Im holds a PhD in measurement, evaluation, and applied statistics from Columbia University. She has worked on various research projects in different educational settings from preschool to higher education. And today, Dr. Im will share some findings from the quantitative data from our program. Okay, welcome, Dr. Im. Are you on though?
She's my advisor.
I actually had a joke, but I took it out because Dr. Im is my. She's very humble and didn't give a lot in her bio. So I'm like, oh, we need to add some more. So my joke was that I've been a grad student for so long that Dr. Im is also collecting data on all of the. People might say excuses, but I call them factors that are related to my dissertation journey, so she can write a whole dissertation herself about how it is advising me and what factors are the most be most correlated to the most progress in my writing. So, but don't worry, Dr. Im, I'm gonna finish it this week.
Do you want to present from PDF or PowerPoint? Either way. Okay. This is okay. Hello. Aloha. My name is Seongah Im. Seongah Im. Sometimes people call me Seongah Im, and which is okay though. But the Seong and are the two sounds. Anyway, so I'm from the Department of Educational Psychology, as she just introduced. I used usually the quantitative methods only for my research. So I'm a person who quantifies things all the time. So the component that I'm going to share with you today also focuses on the quantified result, okay, the quantified portion. And Dr. Boland focused on other aspects of student changes, though, but my presentation focuses more on the math achievement using math scores. Okay. So here is one measure that I wanted to share with you, the result I want to share with you. That's more objective measure based on the curriculum-based math assessment scores. So you can see here the pre-test scores and post-test scores, and then I also put the control and intervention groups. Dr. Bach, I think, used the comparison group instead of control group. I guess the range is the same thing, actually. And then you can see the number of students who actually took the pre-test and also post-test and mean and standard deviation and the minimum value and maximum value. And then I also wanted to show you the histogram of the pre-test from the intervention group and the post-test result from the intervention group. And then the two are related, as you can see, the positively related. You can also see the same pattern from the control group. The relationship between pre and post from the control group is also positive too, right? They are not exactly standard normal distribution or normal distribution, but I think it's pretty close to the shape of normal distribution, which is kind of important in statistics all the time anyway. Yeah. So here is the result showing just the mean comparison between the intervention and control group across time. So at the pre-test, at the post-test, you can see the difference between the intervention and the control group. I actually found the significant difference between the pre-test scores, even between the control and intervention group. So wanted to adjust the initial differences observed from the math ability. So I used the MIDAS score to adjust for the individual difference in math calculation ability, and then found that no difference observed after controlling for the initial individual differences. So I chose the repeated measures ANCOVA instead of repeated measures ANOVA because we found the initial difference in the beginning. And as you can see here, the rate change, the growth rate of the intervention group is positive, right? So that was significant, actually. So we found the positive growth change, the positive growth rate for the intervention group, but the control group actually didn't really change much. No significant change over time. You see a little down kind of a decreasing pattern, though, but that was not significant at all. So you can see it as like no change at all. And the intervention group changed positively. And I also added the effect size at the end. So the intervention and control group difference at the post-test was significant, and Cohen's d was almost 0.9. So I was surprised by size of the effect size, because this effect size indicates almost 1 standard deviation, 0.9 standard deviation higher performance of the intervention group compared to the control group, even after we control for the initial differences. So it means that the intervention actually designed for the BIM project worked very well, so which shows from the result, as you can see from the quantity size, which is very large. Usually the quantity larger than 0.8 is considered very large, actually, so it's a very big number. And then I also wanted to share probably more interesting results related to this page. So this is actually the data that I used. So you actually see all the data points I used for the analysis on the previous page. So you can see how the control group students performed over time, pre and post. And you can see the box plots and the distribution of the pre-test, green, and distribution of the post-test, the orange. So you don't really see much growth pattern. We see some, but some of them are actually going down instead of going up. But when you see the intervention group over there, you see from the box plot, you can see that the median of the pre-test move up significantly higher, actually, at the post-test. And you can also see the difference in the distribution as well. So they are, in general, the students' performance went up in general, upwardly. And then I also think that the variation, actually, the variation within the group, the post group, was not that high compared to the variation within the post group from the control group. As you can see here, this variability actually went up here, right? Went up, but this wasn't, much different, actually, regarding the variability, which actually also shows the effect of intervention as well, even though I didn't analyze specifically the size of variation, the variation within the group. Okay. And then the next step was thinking about actually the target population and the non-target population. The target population was composed of the indigenous student plus Filipino students. And then the comparison group was composed of the white and Asian students, other Asian students. It's kind of expected that the comparison group student performed better than the target student. That's not surprising at all, actually. We are not interested in who did better than the other group, right? Which group did better than the other group. We are more interested in how they grow, actually, in this case. So you can see the target group growth rate and also the comparison group growth rate. And then I found that there was no difference in the growth rate between the target group and comparison group. So they kind of grow almost equally. And the one group did better than the other, which is something expected we already. And you see here the target intervention group, how target intervention group moved up, and then how you see also the non-target intervention group moved. And then I found that the comparison group or non-target intervention group actually had a larger variability at the end, at the post-test, even though their mean was higher, median was higher. But for the target intervention group, you can see that this was the orange from the first figure, orange color from the first figure, this one, wasn't that dispersed, was not much dispersed. The data points were not much dispersed. Again, that actually shows the kind of homogeneous intervention effect onto the target intervention group as well, so which is actually important too. We are looking for all the time the mean differences and positive mean differences, who is better than the other group. So that's important at the end, probably. But we also need to think about if the intervention is working homogeneously well for those people. So this small figure actually shows that for the target intervention group, the intervention actually worked very homogeneously here. And then you can see there is kind of the variability for the comparison intervention group growth later. So the intervention worked probably slightly differently compared to the way intervention worked for the target intervention group. Okay. Anyway, so this was an interesting result, I think. Secondly, I also chose the subjective measure. So the first one was the curriculum-based test scores. That is actually objective measure. And then this is the subjective measure. Each student actually rated if they can do certain mathematical skills in different math area, like trigonometry or geometry or algebra, some other questions. So that, and then students used actually strongly disagree to strongly agree types of Likert scales. So this is actually students' their own self-evaluation. So we wanted to know how the objective measure result can be related to the subjective measurement result too. And then, as expected, the pre-test and post-test are positively related for both intervention and control group. And then we found no difference between the control and intervention group from the very beginning. As you can see, the scores are almost equal, right? And then the change growth a lot actually later. So the growth pattern of the intervention group was significantly different from the growth pattern of the control group, as you can see from the picture directly. And then I also found the QuantD was huge. The QuantD was 0.7, which was smaller than the actual QuantD found from the objective measurement though. But this is still a very big number, I think. And then this is the comparison between control and intervention group. So I emphasized the way we actually see the result through the variability changes. So you can see the intervention group had actually smaller variability now at the end, and then which means actually the intervention worked pretty homogeneously for the intervention group of students. And then you can see also the box plots and the distribution plot showing the moving up pattern. I did the parallel analysis here. So we now see the target intervention group and also the comparison group with the intervention and the control too. So you can see that the growth rate of the target group is the same as the growth of the comparison group with the same intervention. And then as expected, the control group didn't really change much. So the growth rate, the pattern of the change was not significantly different. We can say the pattern of the change from the target population is the same as the pattern of the comparison group change. And then this is the result of the target intervention group and comparison intervention group. And I noticed the very significant change of the target intervention group, not just on the variability, the width of this figure, showing a lot of data points. And you can also see the moving up pattern from the distribution. You can notice everybody, not all of them, but probably, but you can see the lines over there connected. So from the lines over there, you can see students' positive change over time, especially from the intervention group, right? So from both objective and subjective assessment, we found very positive change with a large effect size. And then especially for the intervention group, the effect was very homogeneous actually. Then we also did some analysis using other mathematics scores, which is actually similar to the curriculum-based test math assessment scores, which include GSV, GMAT, and grade equivalency and percentile length. The reason that I chose the curriculum-based classroom assessment scores was just due to the sample size. So I chose the biggest sample size, the test related to the biggest sample size. But with the even smaller sample size, I found almost the same growth patterns of the intervention groups versus control group over time. In all of those math post-test, the intervention group performed higher than the control group as expected. And I also found the effect of the intervention effect was pretty homogeneous for the target population, target plus intervention population group. When we analyzed the mathematical mindset and general growth mindset scores, so we didn't see much changes over time because students were in general very positive from the very beginning. So they were just positive all the time from the beginning to the end. So I didn't see much change, but it didn't decrease. Those scores didn't decrease, but didn't really increase a lot. So okay. That's all I found from the data.